Welcome to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast, your guide to future tech trends and innovation in a language you understand. Now, over to your host, Neil Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast, live from the show floor at the Adobe Summit. But let's take a step back, away from all the madness of Vegas just for a moment. Because I'm fascinated by how technology is transforming industries you don't automatically associate with technology. For example, on episode 544, I spoke with HCL about how they were taking Manchester United Football Club on a digital transformational journey. But they didn't stop there. So I invited them back on the show to learn more about how the customer experience has become the main force behind business transformation and how it's also given rise to experience-led digital businesses. Now, HCL Technologies' new platform launched at the Adobe Summit, which is an omni-channel ecosystem that provides a conversational, data-driven and contextual ability for marketers. Luckily, I was able to secure just a few minutes of time with Anand Birje, and he's the Global Head of Digital Analytics at HCL Technology, to find out more about the great work that they're doing at the moment. So buckle up and hold on tight as I beam your ears all the way back to Vegas, where Anand is waiting to speak with us on the show floor. So we've already spoken on this show about your digital transformation of Manchester United, but for anyone that missed that conversation and are hearing about HCL Technology for the very first time, can you just maybe set the scene and tell me a little bit more about the kind of problems that HCL solve for your customers?
Sure. I mean, firstly, we are a firm that our history and background is product engineering and technology modernization. We've been headquartered in Silicon Valley for 31 years now. And of course, operations around the world with our original headquarters in India. So one of the things that really differentiates us, and we'll talk about the problems we solve, is we've been doing application modernization combined with design and data for actually a very long time. I mean, that's the breadth of our business, apart from infrastructure, cloud, and IoT. So we've been doing embedded engineering of devices, infrastructure management, and then essentially over the last many years, we've been working on app modernization and process modernization through application modernization. So if you look at us, we believe that our strength is in execution of digital strategies and not just stratification, right? Over the last few years, digital strategies in enterprises are moving away from simply talk and proof of concepts and, spotty sort of digital dialogue to more ongoing journeys, which needs extremely strong digital engineering skill set. And that's kind of what we do. So we help enterprises not just, implement specific digital programs, but really transform how IT and business interacts and move them into a more iterative, continuous delivery, modern platforms, modern database sort of operating models. And you can term that as more scaled agile, scaled digital models, so that they can continually sort of, identify business process reimagination and deliver those using new composable technologies. So across the industries, I mean, our biggest industry vertical is banking, both in the retail banking space and insurance space, financial services broadly. We've been working on everything from reimagining their journeys for customer engagement, starting with KYC journeys. We've implemented some of the largest know your customer engagement strategies for banks across the world in Europe, US, as well as in Australia. And from there to really engaging customers through more evolved CX platforms for improving customer engagement, for improving customer churn, or rather reducing customer churn, doing more cross-selling of products, the banking products or insurance products to their customers, devising better strategies for demographic-wise analysis of customers, and improving their cross-sale, upsell into customers. And all of that through seriously modernizing, serially modernizing platforms that they currently engage on. As you would know, financial services industry has had the most amount of legacy applications, legacy data, and legacy platforms. So how do they modernize platforms to create these new journey maps, right? That's really what we worked on in financial services. If you go over to transportation and logistics, which is another very large vertical for us, we've solved issues from modern warehouse management, modern transportation, rethinking logistics journeys, improvising IoT, data and application modernization in the logistics and transportation business, which is again a huge consumer of digital strategies just because of the amount of omni-channel commerce and other stuff that is impacting the logistics world. The third big vertical for us is retail and CPG, both in the B2C space and the B2B2C space. We are seeing huge amount of change, both in the front end, which is the consumer interaction, as well as improving operational efficiencies in the back end. So things from supply chain to product lifecycle management to pricing and merchandising, space management. All of that is going through a huge amount of change through using, both digital process transformations and through modernizing of applications and infrastructure. So I'm just giving you a sort of broad set in the positive time of what we're seeing across industries.
Fantastic. And the world is witnessing immensely disruptive and yet easy to adopt next generation technologies right now. So can you tell me a little bit more about how that disruption combined with consumer expectation for experience-led engagement with brands is actually making enterprises rethink and transform their business models?
Hugely, right? That's actually at the center of everything. In short, what's really happening is, if you take user broadly, right? Consumer is a user, employee is a user, the enterprise partners and intermediaries are all users. And so the user value chain, as I call it, is getting rethought of, whether it's a user value chain in how the enterprise engages with its consumer, how it engages with its employees, who create the business, and how it engages with its partners and intermediaries. All of those user value chains, which were trapped in traditional business processes, are getting rethought of because traditional business processes were created for efficiency. They were not created for experience, right? And so as the enterprises now rethink these value chains, they're essentially putting user experience at the core. User efficiencies and operational efficiencies also are important, but user experience is trumping all of that. In fact, new experiences create new efficiencies, right? So creating new sort of intuitive, delightful experiences across each of these value chains. As I said, consumer value chain, the intermediary value chain, and employee value chain is where a lot of digital dollar and digital time is being spent by the enterprise. And really now everything is up for grabs. So using new technology, using modern composable technology, whether it is artificial intelligence, whether it is AR and VR, whether it is even things like GPS technology, it's machine learning, APIs and microservices, cloud technology, all of these are, or wearable technology, these are, available now to create new experiences along each of these value chains. So as you said, the center of it all is the user value chain, and the rethink of the user value chain is where most of the digital effort and dollars is being spent.
And as I learned from our conversation about Manchester United, digital transformation is now real and mainstream, not just retailers, financial institutions and consumer brand companies. But can you tell me more about how B2B industries such as manufacturing, utilities, pharma and life sciences, telecom companies, etc. are all leveraging this wide range of technology too?
Right, and as you said, so it's the B2B, the B2B2C, and the B2C. The B2C always did it, like the retailers, like the sports companies, anybody that was really, really consumer-facing. But in the last 2 to 3 years, I've seen an exponential rise in the participation and the effort and dollars spent by the B2B companies, whether it's a utility company, example, one of the largest utilities in Europe, they are modernizing their consumer engagement platforms so that they can really provide a more, higher experience level to their consumers that they deliver their electricity services to. At the same time, for operational efficiencies in the back. So they're improving their grid efficiencies, they're improving their workforce efficiencies within the enterprise. They're improving, so manufacturers like automotives and others are improving their product lifecycle management or their manufacturing execution scheduling, which were considered very operational part of their business processes, using digital technologies and digital experiences. So both operational efficiencies and consumer experiences are really driving, digitalization. And that's why, as you said, we're seeing more and more B2B and B2B2C companies actually recognizing that and participating, as much as B2C companies were doing it before. So you're going to see more and more manufacturers, pharma companies, utilities companies, oil and gas companies coming on board. Remember, user value chains are there in all the industries, right? Definitely internal user value chains, which is employee user value chains, operational user value chains, intermediaries and partners. Most B2Bs have partners, trading partners, suppliers, franchisees, etc. And then, of course, the end consumers. And so across all of these, there is a humongous amount of rethink of process, and then enabling that process using sort of new set of technologies and experiences that is happening.
And I also believe HCL have recently acquired Strongbridge for its digital consulting. Can you tell me more about that acquisition and what it means for HCL?
Sure. I think, as I said, our strength has always been the ability to architect and deliver digital technology or using digital technology to deliver new business processes, right? And so our strength has traditionally been design, which is UX, and technology engineering for the enterprise, or technology development for the enterprise. What we were looking for, and we constantly look for, complementary capabilities that kind of, complete the digital value chain. One of the big topics amongst enterprise CIOs, CDOs, CEOs is the organizational change that is happening, right? Change in terms of operating model with their vendors, change in terms of how IT and business is interacting, change in terms of reskilling of their teams, the organization structure, which is becoming more product oriented and sort of agile and scaled agile. And so there's a lot of OCM that is happening, organizational change management that is happening in digital programs. Even how you draw digital budgets is very different from traditional IT budgets, because you're creating iterative, a sort of minimum value, viable product based sort of budgeting of IT. And so all of those were strengths that Strongbridge brings. They were a consulting company that focused on both the digital program management and sort of digital budgeting for benefit assessment, as well as organizational change management. They did not do much of digital engineering or execution of digital strategies, which is our strength, and that's why we acquired Strongbridge. We also have a bunch of overlapping customers where we've worked in the past together, and so that kind of lends a great way to extend their capabilities into our customer base, and of course bring our scale and capabilities around the world to their customer base, where they were sort of restricted to just the change management and program management functions.
And as we're here at the summit in Vegas, I think we must mention as well that you've also just announced an AI solution here at the summit. Can you tell me more about that AI solution and why it's such exciting news?
So, we've been, because of the strength of our both application development and infrastructure engineering business over the years, we've been investing in an AI platform which has both components that we developed and components that we partnered with. And the base of that platform is called Dry Ice. And then we leveraged components of Dry Ice to accelerate either execution of digital applications and programs or improving efficiencies in operating digital platforms. And that's why it's exciting, because one of the big topics in enterprises is how do you sort of infuse AI in building new applications, in creating new business process sets, in sort of automating business processes that are commodity, or speeding up the ability to develop applications for differentiated business processes. So increasingly AI is getting infused. It's not going to be sort of a special dish discussion. It's going to be just it's an ingredient of everything we do, and that's why it's exciting to us. So everything from our digital platforms build to the data build, and then of course operations that we run for enterprises will have infusion of the Dry Ice platform.
So finally, just before I let you go, if we put everything together, everything that we've spoken about today, it seems that to tell the story of HCL's strategy in the digital transformation. Can you expand on that strategy and also what you've learned from your customers along the way?
Yeah, I think, what we've learned from our customers is kind of the significant portion of our strategy. In the last 5 years, we've been kind of lucky to be part of some of the largest scale digital journeys. And what I mean by scale digital journeys is not journeys where somebody was experimenting or doing POCs or sort of flashy projects with digitalization, but wholesale enterprise scale rethink that was happening. One of the largest telecom companies in North America, or one of the most progressive banks in Netherlands, or another very, very progressive insurance company in the Midwest. A lot of these were enterprises that adopted scale digital journeys, and we were part of those journeys as their strategic partner. And what we've learned is really created patterns out of those journeys. And some of these patterns are cross-industry patterns, because increasingly enterprises want to learn not just from their industry, but from adjacent industries or even non-adjacent industries. So a retailer wants to learn from, healthcare industry, and a healthcare industry wants to learn from banking or from pharma or from somebody else. And so what we really developed is a strategic roadmap that defines how do you move from strategy to execution and create a continually executing iterative organization to continuously look for reimagination of processes and deliver using composable digital technologies, and that's really the patterns, the frameworks, and the learnings is what we bring to enterprises across the world. And what's exciting to enterprises is a lot of these are horizontal learnings. They are cross-industry learnings. They're cross-geography learnings. And these learnings are not just strategy development, but execution of digital. And I think that's where the differentiation will happen. The market is going to stop talking just digital strategy and focus on how do you really execute it at an enterprise scale. How do you budget differently? How do you plan differently? How do you create your operating model between business and IT? How do you change the team structures? How do you reskill your teams? And how do you work with your partners and vendors differently?
Well, incredibly busy, and we've got a dash in a few moments, but I just wanted to say a big thank you for taking the time to catch up with me here at the Summit. I wish you the best of luck for the future, and maybe when we leave this event, we can have a catch up a little later on in the year. But a big thank you.
Thanks for your time. Thanks, everyone.
After the interview, Anand had to dash off because he had an insightful panel discussion to actually perform, where he was joined by some esteemed industry leaders out there, and he was discussing how to create tomorrow's customer experiences by building a powerful digital marketing ecosystem. But during our conversation now, I love learning more about these latest developments in human-centered digital transformation and the future of data-driven customer experiences. And I'd love to reconnect in much more detail in a quieter, more sane place in the near future. Now, I have been in Vegas for 3 days now and recorded 12 interviews. I wonder if Norris McWhirter and Roy Castle were still around. Do you think I'd actually get on Record Breakers as the hardest working podcast host? We'll just leave that one out in the universe. So I'm going to go off for a lie down now. But a big thank you for listening, and until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thanks for listening to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast. Until next time, remember, technology is best when it brings people together.